should women be drafted? This is an effort to figure out if you guys are feminist or not. Should women be drafted in the military?
Like, by drafted, do you mean like when you turn 18, like you're automatically?
Okay, yeah. So men have to register for the selective service. Currently, there's not a draft in the United States, but all men in the United States at 18, in order to be able to vote and have other benefits, they have to register for the selective service, which would then make them subject to military conscription in the case that there was a military conflict which required a draft. So do you think women should be subject to selective service draft? Forced?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Okay.
I wouldn't even trust women to like fight for our country unless that's like that's their thing. You know, like if you're like that type of woman that you feel like you're stronger and stuff like that. But I just feel like no.
Okay. What do you think?
Well, hold on. So you think they should be drafted based on how they feel?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying if, like, willingly, if you just want to.
She's saying if they want to
volunteer.
volunteer.
No, just really want to volunteer. Yeah,
if they want to volunteer, yes.
Yeah, but then that just defeats the purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean.
Right. Well, that's what we currently have.
Yeah, but I guess we should be drafted because I mean.
Okay. All right.
I mean, plenty of men don't want to join.
Okay.
Plenty of men, plenty of women. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
If we gotta do what we gotta do, I mean, yeah.
Now here's the interesting thing. You guys both have different opinions on this. I still don't know which is actually like the actual feminist position, because we'll have feminists who will argue it's actually, we had one last week with Andrew, who said, well, it's not equitable. It's not equity for women to be drafted. That's a whole nother thing.
I noticed they quickly drop the word equality the second anyone tries to apply it universally, because it would alienate all the privileges and special treatment that they get. So instead, they opt to swap equality to equitable so they can continue to enjoy all their privileges and special treatment.
Interesting.
But what about you?
No.
No? Okay.
No, women should not be drafted.
Should not be drafted?
No.
But they should be paid equally in sporting events?
No comment.
Okay.
No.
They shouldn't be drafted?
I don't think so.
Well, hold on.
Okay, so everybody except Anza said women shouldn't be drafted, but y'all want to be equal? So wait a sec. How are you equal if the men are the ones that have to fight and die to defend the country? The men are the ones that build and maintain all the infrastructure, right? Like none of this stuff in the studio is built or maintained by women. Do you know that like 90% of infrastructure jobs are still held by men? And that if you look at the top 20 jobs held by women now, in 2024 versus 1924 are almost the exact same. So women have had 100 years to do whatever they want, and they still do the same 20 jobs they did 100 years ago, other than we switched out farm labor for HR work. But other than that, we're secretaries, nurses, daycare ladies, early childhood education, administrative assistants, retail workers, all the same shit that we were a century ago. So if the men are the ones tasked with every time there's a natural disaster, they have to go out and rescue people from the fires and the floodwaters, and every time there's a war, the men have to go and fight it and defend the country, and anytime there's a criminal who needs to be violently arrested, it's going to be a man who goes and does that, not a woman. Where does the equality come in?
That's the truth they want to ignore. They say they want equality, but if we look at society, they aren't equally contributing when it comes to infrastructure and hard and dangerous jobs. Women make up 50% of the workforce, yet over 90% of all workplace fatalities are men. When you bring up this uncomfortable truth and offer real equality, they almost always say no. We want equity, like they did here.
If we're doing the fluffy jobs, you know, we're all singers. We got a lot of singers and musicians, which is cool. It's great. I love music too. But y'all ain't like rescuing people and, you know, doing the heavy lifting or the dirty or the dangerous jobs. Like who collects the trash? Men. You know, who does all the steel working and oil rig work and all of the like sewer cleaning? Men.
Tower making.
We have a video on this, Rachel, actually. Nick, remember that video we were looking at yesterday? I think it might still be on one of the tabs. Let's watch this. No audio. No audio. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Are you ready to work on an oil rig? All right.
Come on, feminists, get in there. You
those
can
are
do
some
it.
roughnecks.
Come on,
That's
ladies. Anyone?
definitely not strong
Andrew had to
enough for
do
that.
stuff like that back in the day. They'd lower him
Underwater
into
welding, I
not
guess.
not
Or-
underwater, but they would lower him into these tiny little horrifically frightening spaces to do extremely dangerous stuff.
I'm claustrophobic.
I really feel like
Yeah.
women should just have the choice to do it if they want to, because I know some women that can handle it.
They do have the choice, and they're
That's-
not.
They
doing
do,
it.
and they're not
doing it.
They
That's
don't
fine.
want to.
Well, I
this
mean,
this
that's
is the
fine.
big secret,
Yeah.
right? Is that women don't want to do any of this dirty,
Some-
dangerous, scary stuff. They don't want to.
Well, yeah, but is that just, what we've been raised with, the culture
No.
we're surrounded by?
No, and I have data to back this up. So
Okay.
if you
Oh, is there more, Nick? Just let it play.
yeah, we'll just let it play. So back around the time of suffrage, we're talking like 1850s to 1920, roughly around there when the big suffrage movement was happening. Did you guys know that most women were completely against it? By all of the referendums that they would do where they would let women vote on whether they wanted to vote, only about 4% actually had any interest in voting. And they actually had really good reasons for this. There was much higher membership in anti-suffrage groups than pro-suffrage groups. And these groups would do public debates. They would do written debates, newspaper periodicals where they would go back and forth and debate these things. And the women who were against suffrage said, look, the primary purpose of government is to protect persons and property, okay? Why task women with that when we're not really capable of doing that, okay? We don't want to have to be drafted. We don't want to have to do jury duty. We don't want to have to be a political bloc, because back then women had advocacy groups for things they wanted, but they weren't a lobbying group. They didn't have like voting rights, so they weren't able to be as easily politicized. They felt like they had a moral high ground to ask for things like, we need more parks, we need better schools, we need clean air, whatever it was. Who defends our national borders? Not a bunch of feminists, right? The use of force is still always going to be men.
I mean, of course,
like when you come down
men are
to it.
taller and bigger. Of course,
Yeah.
they're gonna have
Now
that
you're getting it.
physical. Well, I always got it. I always
Right.
understood.
Right.
I mean, going back to the sports things. I mean, the men are gonna be able to do things that women just physically
Right.
can't. But
So when we talk about equality, the only equality women have is the illusion of equality granted to them and provided for them by men.
She's spot on. While men and women contribute to society in different ways, there is no doubt that men are the main ones working the jobs that hold up society, such as police, construction, military, the energy sector, mining, logging, agriculture, truckers, etc. A lot of these jobs are overlooked and forgotten, but without them, society would collapse immediately.
sure. I mean, that's why I think it depends on the context when it comes to equality. Personally,
But if you have to appeal to men and say, men, let us be equal. We demand equality. And the men go, fine, we'll enforce equality. Is that really equality?
well, that's why I think it depends on how it is being handled. Personally, I think
So it's up to the men, basically. It's always going to when
Well,
you get
because
down
they're
to it,
already
you have
in
the
that
men.
position. If we could flip it, and then they'd have to ask us, right? I mean, it's-
Okay. So you think we could put women on all the oil rigs, and we could put women in the Senate, we could put women in the military as generals, we could make them sheriffs, and that would work out fine?
yeah.
You think so? Okay.
I
so-
mean, well, here's the thing. I mean, okay. For example, I remember watching this one show. I think it was called Stars and Stripes, and it took a bunch of celebrities and put them in the position of military. It had men and it had women. The person who ended up winning was the skier Peekaboo Streets, and she was a woman.
We don't care.
I think we need a reminder of what happened when they put men and women on an island for a survival competition. The link to that video is in the description.